So yeah, we'd love to have you start with just stating your name, what you do in your own words for listeners.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Camilo Otalora. So kind of two jobs. So like by day I work at P&G in digital marketing, and then by night, partners with this guy over here on starting Lost and Found. So I'm more like the back office, administrative, kind of like the biz dev behind the scenes, and then like Steven runs day-to-day operations. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of the TLDR of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I am Steven Clement, owner operator of Lost and Found. Sometimes photographer, sometimes
Line cook.
yeah. I'm just managing the space there and curating the events. We do some like different like art installations in there from people around the city. So yeah, I wear a lot of hats in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of hats to wear.
Yeah. So what were you doing previous to Lost and Found? I know you were at P&G or still are, correct? So what were you doing before
I
Lost and Found?
was the bar manager at Salazar restaurant in Over the Rhine.
Oh yeah.
From about 2014 until 2017. And then that was when we had started ramping up like what was going on to get Lost and Found opened. Yeah. Which didn't open until 2 years later, almost to the day, which was funny. So I was like an Uber and Lyft driver, and like to fill my time. I worked at Boomtown for a little bit.
I love Boomtown.
Yeah,
I was so sad.
Opened.
I know they moved away, but oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was good when it was good.
Yeah.
It was good when it was around. Yeah.
I did hear that. About,
for
management. Sure. So before we dive into Lost and Found, what's your Cincinnati origin story? Did you guys grow up here? Or if you didn't, how did you make your way here?
Yeah, I actually grew up in a little suburb west of Cleveland. And when I was 19 years old, I moved out. It was a really small town. It's like 0 traffic lights. There's like a couple of bars there. So you kind of get the idea of what, people do there. And I just like wanted to like see a little bit more of the world. So I went south. When I was 21, I found myself in Cincinnati and fell in love with the hills of the city kind of first. It was like, oh, wow, Cleveland area is kind of flat for the most part. And you just come down here in the same state and it's just like rolling hills. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of nature stuff down here. So yeah, it's like kind of what kept me around. Yeah.
Yeah. I came here summer of 2011 for a job. So like so many people would say like, I'd think that, I'd be here 2-3 years tops and slingshot to a coast. Unclear if I was going to go West Coast or East Coast, but this is just like a pit stop. And then 12 years later, here I am like, and you can't get me out of here.
Yeah.
Right. It's, it has been wild to like think back when I was, so I moved here specifically from Phoenix, and I remember like trying to think of where I wanted to move to. And I was like, Chicago or Austin or New York, or you can keep going down the list of cities. And Cincinnati wasn't in the top 20, right?
Definitely not. Yeah.
Then
that's fair. We won't hold that against.
And then like, it's mea culpa, right? But like I just came here for a job, but I immediately moved into OTR. I lived above Park and Vine for my first year here. So it was 2011 OTR. Just like,
miss that store.
Yeah.
If you're out there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then here I am.
Cool.
I know that there's a unique story about the Lost and Found building. And I heard you're an OTR OG. So you said 2011. That's a long time. Yeah. That's before there were all these cool things going on. It was really the start.
2011 is one of the years that your friends are probably still questioning, oh, are you sure you want to live there?
Yeah. I probably just didn't know what I was getting myself into, to be completely honest. I came here and so P&G brought me over, and you do like you get hooked up with a realtor to kind of show you around and figure out where you want to rent first. She just kept showing me like Hyde Park and Oakley and all the other different neighborhoods. And I was like, this just doesn't jive. This is not my vibe at all.
You'll have a lot of P&G neighbors though.
Yeah, 100%. And no offense. So we stopped for lunch, and that was really the first time that we actually, her and I got to talking. She actually I was like, okay, like, what are you interested in? Tell me more about like what you like to do. And then like, she was like, So I have this one spot that I don't show people because most of them kind of freak out. And then she showed me this 500 square foot apartment above Park and Vine. And I was like, done. Here's my check.
Yeah,
like,
I'll take it.
I'll take it right now. And have not left OTR since.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And then after, so before Lost and Found was a bar,
Yep.
I remember years and years ago, literally my first adult experience in Cincinnati, through mutual friends of ours.
Yep.
I ended up at one of your parties, which were infamous.
Those were fun.
Yeah.
Those were fun. Nice.
Infamous.
Yeah. 2012 to 2015. That's I'll always like earmark that as like, that's like the golden age. of OTR. It was like the Wild West, but it just had just enough structure where it didn't feel like I was going to get stabbed.
Yeah.
But like it, that was a good time. That was a fun time.
So it's really funny because Brad said he had been to a party. I had I've never been to a party, which now I'm sad. But my real estate agent actually brought me to Lost and Found when I was looking to buy. And this was like right when you guys had opened. Okay. And he was telling me about the Rangers. So infamous is the right word.
Those are
he knows how to throw a party.
Yeah.
Both of us, because really that didn't happen until like, we got together, right? That's when Steven and I moved in together. Which is its own serendipitous story.
I was gonna say we heard that you two have an interesting story about how you met. So let's recount that.
Yeah.
Sure. I think I was working at a steakhouse downtown that's no longer there, and right after I would get off of work, I would immediately go to like Neon's at the time, which is something else now. But Neon's was like the bar to go to. It was the hang. It was like where every politician was there, every like person that's wearing, whatever. You came as you were and you were welcomed as you were. And like that's eventually like where we at that particular bar at Neon's, we had met, but we had met kind of like interacting or trying to swoon the same person and at the same time. And we sort of, like I was like picking up what he was putting down, and he was like not giving me any of that like animosity that sometimes, men mostly will like, puff out their chest and like, like we like back off, but it was not that energy at all. And 20 minutes into the conversation, we're like kind of talking to each other more than we're actually interacting with this woman at the bar who's lovely.
She's actually a dear friend of mine now.
Yeah.
Like dear friend of mine.
Lovely human being. But we ended up just like exchanging phone numbers, which led to an immediate like, oh, do you need to crash on the couch? But that led to like, here's my garage code, basically the key to my house. You can just crash here anytime that you need to. And that's kind of like how he would wake up for work at P&G at like 6 a.m. and I'm like sleeping on the couch, waking up to the smell of some lovely coffee that you're making. And that's kind of like how things eventually moved into like, I moved in there and we started like hosting some stuff. Did I miss anything?
I think that's the gist of it. Really, really.
Yeah.
That is a lovely bromance story. If
I
I've
love
ever
it.
heard one.
May the best man win turned into a friendship.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was like the general playbook, because like you kill him with kindness. So it's like, oh, if I'm nice to the guy, he's going to go away.
He wants you to win.
Yeah, and he was doing the same thing to me. So at this point, we're all like fake building each other up until it became like we're really building each other up, and then we realized this is a much more interesting conversation between you and I than either of us are having with her. Love you, by the way, if you're listening. I do love you. But,
she knows who she is.
Yeah, she knows who she is.
For sure. For sure. We considered like naming the bar after her in some way.
Yeah.
Like, what's her middle name? Like, maybe like something like that.
Yeah, we dabbled into it. Didn't work out
Oh
that
my
way,
gosh, I love that.
The royalty payments didn't work out.
She wanted too much.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Well, how do you go from, basically cohabitating to running this bar together?
Man, it was at some point after like maybe 3-4 years of like, basically running this party pad for a while, we do come to the realization that, okay, everyone kept saying that we were doing something crazy and special. And I was like, I don't know, it just felt like it came naturally to us. So we're like bringing in diverse groups of people, diverse music, and like intentionally making like circles clash. And that's what we really like deliberately were trying to do. So at some point we do like, it does get through our thick skull that we're like, okay, apparently we have a knack at this. It just feels normal, but apparently everyone else says that we're pretty good at this. So how do we actually like turn that into something? And that's really how that started. I remember it started in earnest on my kitchen table spring of 2016. We had been talking about it for a while. But I remember it was spring 2016 where we were like, do we want to do this? I think we should try. Let's actually like take the first step and stop talking about it. And it was literally Googling how to write a business plan. As simple as like, okay, where do we start? We're like, start with Google. So that's how we did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Took 3 years to open. Right. That would have been spring 2016. I'll never forget our first bank pitch, which is June 24th, 2016. Because that day is like, they told us now. But it's fine. Yeah. It ended up taking about a year to get financing, to actually find the money to do the project. And
Which
we've
is
been
pretty
like,
normal. Yeah.
yeah. And oh man, if I can just talk to myself back then, I'm like, this is how it's going to go down. I mean, irrespective of the pandemic, that's a whole other ball of wax that we're not going to get to. But like, the journey of getting something started from scratch when you like don't have a playbook to follow and you're not like, no one's holding your hand. So like we leaned a lot on our community. Like the amount of people that lent a hand to us to just give us some feedback or like ask them whenever we had a question to ask. No question was too dumb. Everyone had like been there before, and everyone that had like built a spot remembers being in our shoes when we were like full of optimism, but not a lot of experience. And the experience of opening a spot is extremely, you can't replicate that. And so, and I just kind of like tangented into like a different subject.
No, that's one of our questions is like, what makes Cincinnati different for bar owners and small businesses? And everyone has been saying the same thing, like that sense of community. Like they really, people don't realize, I mean, it's so hard to start a business anywhere, but I've heard that it is a little bit easier here just because they are supportive. And it is compared to like trying to open something up New York, LA, some of the bigger cities, but not to take away from how hard it is to start a business.
Yeah, it was extremely, extremely difficult, but like it wasn't through lack of people it wasn't because of people were getting in the way. It's just like the process and the thing you're doing is a really hard thing to do. And what's interesting is like, so for our roles is like in the getting the space open, you know, we can call it that like the lion's share of that kind of fell on my shoulders. And then Steven is there and like support in any way, shape or form. Still a ton of work, still a ton of meetings with architects, design, lots of other stuff. But there's a lot of things that I'm like, it's permitting, it's liquor licenses, it's all like the administrative stuff that kind of like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And then like the day that we've opened, it's almost like a role reversal. Now it's like the day-to-day operation and running of the space is like almost entirely on his shoulders. And I'm like, how can I help? How can I support? So it's like the day that we opened, it was like, okay, here are the keys essentially. Now you got to carry this. So it's,
what was the official opening date?
It's like August
21st, 2019.
Yeah, something like that. We had like a soft opening and then like, but like it's around the third week of August is like, I think it was like the 21st or something.
Yeah, I think at them I was certain it was August 21st.
Yeah. I don't remember those dates because everything was just like a whirlwind, a blur. Just like, oh, we printed our menus on black paper because our art director at the time thought it would be cool and you couldn't read anything. And also my parents came down for the soft opening and that was like the first thing that my mom said. She's like, you can't read your menu. And I'm like,
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, we're going to work on that. So we're going to work on
was the font black too?
No, the font was like yellow. It was like yellow, gold.
Okay.
Yeah, because like black and yellow are our core brand colors. Like we've added like green and pink as secondary colors since then. But like back then we were like, I don't know, that we're in Cincinnati territory and black and yellow is a Steelers thing.
Yeah.
But that was
Yeah.
that was not the intent. It was like, oh, we just think that looks cool. But so we were like, everything was black and yellow back then. So
Yeah. It seems like, I don't know. I think we've all seen a lot of bars open and close in OTR, but it seems to me that one difference with your establishment is that you guys put so much thought into those details, and continue to do so, because it's changed a lot since it's open. So like, how do you go about that? Like, how are you always thinking of the next detail to kind of layer in?
I think that like there was like one thing that we saw that was really similar with like what was opening up in Cincinnati, especially like in the historic districts, is like, you got a room, you got hardwood floors, you got brick on the wall, let's put some tables and chairs in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, there wasn't, the character of the building is like cool in itself, even if it's empty, but like what are people missing? Where are they missing the mark? And it's like in our own like unique tastes, and our like we weren't really afraid to do what no one was doing. We weren't afraid to like throw up a bunch of colors, or like throw up a decoupage of like a bunch of different like flowers and plants and artists and like magazine cutouts, or like throw graffiti on the wall. We weren't, that never really held us back. We were just really excited to do something that no one had seen here before.
We wanted to build the bar that we wanted to hang out in, right? This is the bar that we like lusted that Cincinnati would have. And we're like, cool, like it's not here, let's do it. We think there's enough people like us that this might be a good business.
Yeah. So, for like a solid year and a half, before like ground even broke, we were trying to describe or like recreate what the like party atmosphere we had upstairs was. So we were talking about, let's just make it look like our living room. I don't know, like without a TV.
Like the number of ideas that like we like pitched and like moved away from, and that was definitely one of them. And
I honestly mentioned that earlier. It just has a homey like sense to it, and it's so edgy. And to me, it feels like West Coast. Like I lived in Los Angeles and Orange County for 9 years, and in Hollywood, there's this place called Good Times at Davy Wayne's. If you've heard of it, you go through like a garage and you enter through a fridge, and then it's the whole bar is like set up like their house they grew up in. And then when you go out the back, it's like a patio, but it had that edgy vibe with all the artwork and the colors and the pop. And like, I loved it when I walked in. I was like, oh, I was like, oh man, it did have that West Coast vibe. Where do you think, I know you said like neons was kind of inspiring because it drew like a bunch of different people in. Did you have any other inspiration just besides your personal taste that you pulled from maybe other bars?
I think what you just described is kind of like what we were also going for, because that personal touch lets you know that there are human beings behind like building a space. There's like, and it's offering a lens into like their own personal lives in a way. And like inspiration for us, I mean, like neons it was an inspiration as far as a local thing goes, but like we saw a lot of inspiration like in Chicago. I think like Best Intentions was a huge like,
I don't know if they've announced a comeback yet, but they've been like, what a cool place. Amazing. I mean, it's like, think like a dive bar, but that has really good cocktails and like Angostura bitters on tap, and like some like a DJ spinning 45s in the corner, and it's like kind of shitty, like, but it's like really nice, and they like really care about what they're doing. There's what other places in Chicago? Oh man, from Chicago, we took a lot of influence from Slippery Slope, from Billy Sunday. We really did want to do this kind of high-low concept of the product is like, we had aspirations of being like, the product is going to be, we want this to be a talked about cocktail bar nationally as a product. And at least like you put that as your guiding star, whether you actually hit that or not, that's a separate discussion. But like we wanted to do that. But then the space, we were like, all those other bars that are spoken of in those terms are like either super fancy, they're the suspendered, mustachioed
Right.
bartender from
Classic.
like the early
Tattooed.
aughts, and so all those types of bars, at least back then, were all very kind of fancy or highbrow. So we're like, how do we deliver that product? Actually, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but one of the like a guiding mantra that we had in the early part of the process was like, we wanted to look like the house of the star bartender. Like, what does his home look like?
Oh yeah.
If you're at his house and entertaining, what's he making you? What's he looking like? He's like, came back from his whatever, like super high end cocktail spot, but that's his job. What does he make for his friends at home?
Yeah.
He's still
that.
really, really skilled, really, and that was like the centering vision. Is like, it's the bartenders after party house.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was one of the things that
We like noticed, or at least I noticed a lot of like as the cocktail scene grew in the neighborhood, how like serious everybody took everything, and like the high-low thing for the high-low, highbrow, lowbrow thing was like really important for us to hit because we really care about the ingredients and treat the ingredients that we select from like local purveyors, local farmers, treat them with respect. But like we don't have our shirts tucked in and we're not wearing ties, and like, you know, we play some like trappy music sometimes, or like we play some like, you know, we play like a lot of different types of music. Music is a huge part of the ethos. And like that was like one of the driving forces that was really important to us, was to hit this highbrow, lowbrow. It's like you walk in and you feel at home, but like, you know, not everything is like perfectly in place. Not everything is so like neat. Like you can see like there's exposed screws in our marble bar. You know, it's like a bar that we built that bar out of repurposed marble that was wainscoted against like
a basement in Dayton.
Yeah, basement in Dayton, and this
Yeah.
this marble was like apparently a part of the old Bank of Dayton. So it's now like our bar, and you can like, I don't know, you see some exposed screws, and I remember when those screws were being pushed in, and like the person doing it was like, this just looks like shit. And I was like, it is absolutely perfect. Like it's perfect.
Leave it.
Yeah, like leave it. Leave all these like little Easter eggs of like, oh, I can, you know, like the things that people would like to hide, we like, some of those things we like expose.
Yeah. With so many different like layers and so much going on in a way that's really well coordinated, in my opinion. Do you think like your typical clientele, is there anything that they're missing? Like, or maybe someone going for the first time, like what should someone expect when they're going for the first time to really experience everything that you're doing?
Yeah, it's as the time changes throughout the evening, like our vibe changes as well. So the lights get a little bit lower as the light outside gets a little bit lower. The candles get lit. The one thing that I like for the older clientele that come in, it's really important for me for them to feel comfortable in there too, like in that space.
Yeah.
But it's like only certain types of people of that age feel comfortable in there. So like the ones that come, they come often. And the ones that come to like, oh, I saw this on Google to see what it's like, they might feel like, oh, this is like too young for me. And, you know, I'm not young by any means, like 37 years old.
38.
Yeah. And like, it's like, but like that youthful energy and that youthful spirit, those are the people that we're kind of reaching out to and talking to. And we're finding like a lot of those people that are like in their 60s and 70s, they're like coming here regularly, like, this is the most amazing thing that we've ever seen. Like, this is amazing. We never knew anything like this in Cincinnati existed. But oftentimes these people are also from like other places in the world.
Yeah.
So like well-traveled people like to come in there and be transported to, like, they're like, this is Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Still, yes.
It feels worldly. That's so funny you mentioned that, because Brad and I were talking before the show, and I was like, my parents love the bar. Like, and they're in their 60s and almost 70s. And
my parents wouldn't keep up.
Really?
No.
Well, they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And I was explaining to him, like, I adore this bar because it's not pigeonholed to like, it's a college bar. It's that young, like, professionals bar. It's really like, I feel all inclusive of anyone who likes a creative space.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way. It's a good way to say it. It's like we try to like offer something interesting, like interesting and different. Be like, we have a POV and we want to express that and say that pretty loudly. And it's just a space to try different. I mean, if you look at our menu, and frankly, I mean, if you look at, we can make any drink you want, right? If you want an old fashioned Negronis, Spagliatos, which are all the rage now, but so like you can get any drink you want there. So if you just want straight whiskey, come on over, enjoy it, have cool tunes, hang out with your friends too. But like if you read the core menu, whether it be the wine or the food or particularly the cocktails, everything's intentionally like inventive and trying to be, nothing is by the book. Nothing is like right down the middle as you would expect it. It's there's either a twist or more of a twist, or as you kind of read through the whole thing, and
a je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, sure.
I'm a whiskey girl, and Brad and I were saying like they're the perfect high-end cocktail, and I love that you highlighted the fact that you do purvey from like local people and respect the ingredients, and they're not too sweet. Sometimes I feel like in the local area when they try to get all kooky and crafty with their cocktails, it just goes in the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally speaking, this region of the country tends to oversweeten and probably under-season food. but that's changing pretty quickly.
Oh, heck yeah, it is.
Talk about Midwestern salads.
Oh my gosh.
The first time I saw that when I moved here, I was like, what the fuck? Why are there marshmallows in my salad?
Oh, yeah.
It's delicious. It's a dessert, though. It's a dessert. It's delicious, but it's a dessert. Okay, carry on.
I will say I have never indulged in that being from here. Oh, boy. Oh, well, I know there is a mantra, supposedly, that you guys are purveyors of good times. How did you, and clearly you've really been describing this, but how did you like come up with that mantra? And it sounds like it was, from your own experiences in partying.
Yeah. When you have fun, like when you're having fun in the moment, it's like you don't think about the fact that you're having fun. You're just like, this is really good. But there's like things happening around you that you don't see, like the things behind the curtain that you don't see that are facilitating that. And that's like what those big parties were, is like we set everything up. We set sound up, we set some lights up, we invited all of our friends, and he and I respectively have like a very different circle of friends. So like seeing those humans like clashing together was super fun just to like be a part of. And so then we like it would eventually just become a part of the party. It wasn't like, hey, look at us, we threw this huge party, we're so cool. It was like, this is really cool just to see human beings that would never ever talk to each other ever. And they're like exchanging like phone numbers, or they're like exchanging like ideas.
Along those lines, like my favorite moment anytime we threw a party was, so there's you've been there in the staircase that like goes up halfway and then doubles back. And I would just always love, particularly when the place is shoulder to shoulder, there are 300-400 people in the building. It's insane. Definitely a fire code violation.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And I would just stand up. It's weird that I don't like praise is weird. It kind of puts me, it's off-putting for me. I just kind of like to be behind the scenes and see like I did a good thing and I feel really good about it.
Yeah.
So like when the party is just humming, and I would just stand on this like landing in the stairs, and I would just like, that was a good spot where I could see the upper loft, the main living room space, and I can kind of also peek out to the patio, which is every single one of them is like packed shoulder to shoulder. And you just see the different circles of people intermingling. So you have like a young professional over here talking to a bartender over here. There's just different walks of life all like crashing together. Like friends that I definitely knew didn't know each other before this were making out in a corner. Like, and just that moment of just like watching the whole thing happen in front of you and knowing that like, we facilitated this and we built this space for that to happen. That was everything. That was, being a purveyor of good time. Like really, so why we named it. That's like the spirit as to the why we needed to name our LLC something. So that was the
I
best.
feel
idea.
like we spent like a month trying to figure out what the hell are we calling this LLC.
Oh yeah, we spent, but compared to how much time we spent trying to name the bar, that's a whole separate discussion.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is a good question because I was curious how they came up with the name.
Yeah. Well, like there's actually it's like multi-layered, but let's go with the first one.
Yeah.
Those parties, we had a literal lost and found. There's everything. You could think of anything, and it was left. There's Bergenstocks. Someone left their shoes. Like they left without shoes. Their purses,
car
wallets,
keys that have never been claimed.
Acura car keys.
If you lost an Acura circa 2013 at our house, we still might have your key.
I think it's 2015, and they're actually displayed in the bar.
I was just going to say, I hope you display these.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so
like
cool.
displayed in the bar in like an old 1950s Coke box.
Yeah.
That's like screwed into the wall. There's like just little trinkets in there.
Do you think eventually that person's just embarrassed and they're like, I don't know where
I'm
my
embarrassed
keys
for
are?
them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Come on by. We still got your keys.
But if it was me that lost my keys and I like had just had no idea where they were, I'd probably just like get them replaced and be like, I guess I lost those.
Yeah.
So there's like that element to it, which is kind of fun. And the nature of the space and how it looks is like the front of it is very bright, lots of windows, lots of light comes in. But when you enter, it's kind of like, what am I going into? And it's like kind of dark. And the juxtaposition of like light on one half and dark on one is kind of like the lost and found
I
element
love that.
to it.
I never even picked up on that, but I did pick up on the light to dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Pat is it's like a little jungle oasis, right? If you look at like the mural, like a lot of plant work out there. So that was always in like, okay, here's the super vibrant. Like what would be the opposite of a really dark, sexy cocktail bar, which is what the inside is. Then let's make it like a bright, lively jungle type of thing.
It's like pulls you in with the eye, like yellow background and just like shapes. And it looks like a little room with just like a lot of cool stuff in it, plants and things like that. And also like where we're located is like, just like, if you weren't looking for it, you would never be able to find it.
Yep.
There's still people. There's like a big bright neon sign with like a green hand holding a pink cocktail.
Yeah.
And like people are like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like what's going on in this?
Yeah.
And like if you are somebody that like, is curious, then you'll enter. And if you're not, then you won't. And that's kind of like another like lost and found sort of thing. Like the curious people always find something. And those are the people that we were kind of like speaking to.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. And I love that sign. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Which wasn't easy to get put up if I recall.
No. I mean, there's been a lot of other permitting issues throughout the journey of the bar, but getting that one put up was one of them. Right?
Neon signs in historic districts from the 1800s.
Yeah, that's it's not a particularly entertaining story, but it was just hard.
Yeah.
It was just hard.
Yeah. So a question looking forward, what's next for you two? I mean, you've got this great bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a huge space, but you're, incredibly successful with it. So is there another lost and found or another concept in the works?
So if you would have talked to us in 2019, we definitely had a few ideas, but moving into like where we are now and what we went through to just be able to sit here on this couch. We're kind of like more focused on what's going on in there and making those systems like hum, because we just had our first official summer. We didn't have like
that's interesting,
a summer.
Oh, yeah.
We've been open 3 years and like we didn't have a real summer until last year. Since opening at the end of the summer of 2019.
To build on that, right? It is a weird situation to be in where like, we're just past 3 years open and people ask like, how's business? I'm like, I can't really answer that question, right?
You haven't had a normal year yet.
COVID hit 6 months into us being open. So like any historical data is pretty worthless. So usually the bar scene here, you kind of measure off seasonality. So you don't like, how did June do compared to March? No, June's always going to be better than March. You want to compare June to the prior June to see, are you actually growing and doing stuff? So we're 3 years in, but like our 2 prior historical years are either the first 6 months of being open, which is like, sometimes it's really strong or not so strong. But then it's 2.5 years of COVID.
Yeah.
And we're like, what use is it comparing summer 22 to summer 21 or fall? Like, if I put my mind in last year, this is like prime Delta variant time. So like that was an impact on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, it's weird to be 3 years in and be like, I don't know how it's going. It's where our doors are still open. Like surviving this was challenging, and we're definitely still like looking forward, but I'd be lying if we weren't a little snake bitten and just like navigating the last 3 years. And in particular, Steven here, he's underplaying it, the amount of like blood, sweat, and like literal tears sometimes to actually make it to the other side.
Yeah.
So to put a finer point on it, like we right now, like for the here and now, we're just focused on making Lost and Found as successful, as like as successful a bar as we can make it, right? Both as a staple or a pillar for the community, but also frankly, like as a business. We're still learning. This is our first business, right? And the amount of mistakes that we've made, things that I would do differently, things he would do differently, like things we would design the space completely differently. Knowing what we know now, we would make very different design choices, but the thing's built and we don't have the money to just scrap it and start over again. So we're working with like decisions that were made in 2018 for a very different world today.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely not saying no, we have aspirations of doing other things. It wouldn't be a Lost and Found 2.
Right.
It would be other concepts. You have other things that excite us. But like, that's maybe a little bit more medium and long term, where if you would have asked us pre-COVID, we were like, oh yeah, we want to roll this right into the next thing.
Yeah.
And today we're a little bit more cautious.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Like La Petite Disco was the one thing that comes to mind, which we kind of like built a brand within Lost and Found, but that was going to be like, just like just like a warehouse that's open like Thursday through Sunday, and that's it. And it's just like dancing.
Yeah.
It's only dancing.
We need that here. We talked about
it's almost like what would be like the Japs annex of like today, right? For like, but that same crowd, for the same like 25 to 40 crowd or 25 to 45 crowd.
Yeah. Because like that is an area that like Cincinnati really, really could use more of, and like kind of suffers in, is like picking really good music in a cool and interesting space, and like not catering to the top 40 crowd. It's just like, if you want to make a request to the DJ, you will be like cold shouldered. Just let us do it. And then you have fun. That's your job. Your job is to have fun. And we're going to like facilitate that.
Can you play this song and also this cocktail? Can you make these alterations?
Well, and I'm not like, we're never going to like make anyone feel like shit for like wanting something that they want. It's like, if we have it, we'll make it for you. From I think what I'm talking about though is like it within the space. Like, yeah, I think Cincinnati could use some more like edgy opportunities to dance and wiggle some frustration out. And those are places that, a lot of different types of people also like clash, is like on a dance floor, and feeling like you can be yourself and like let loose, not be so tight and tense.
You both clearly know your brand and your target consumer. And I think that's, in my opinion, a huge key to success for you guys. And that also goes along with it. It's that curious person that doesn't have to, ask for everything else to be changed to be their way, because they want to experience something new.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah. That's who we're here for. Yeah. We're here for everybody, but like, those are the people that
come with an open mind, maybe.
Yeah.
What do you think has been the most rewarding part about owning and running the business? Obviously, there was so many challenges when you first started with COVID, and Brad even talked about how unique you guys developed strategies like the what was it, the grab and go cocktail kits to kind of survive that.
We started off with Booze Box.
Yeah, Booze Box, that was the word.
And then we've evolved that into Booze Bag and Booze Bottle.
Oh, nice.
Booze Box was just kind of born out of necessity. We're like, that's kind of, we turned into a spaghetti restaurant for a while. We're back to being a spaghetti restaurant on Wednesdays, which we'll talk about that. But back then it was like anything and everything that could give us any ounce of revenue would work. And people were jonesing for having a night out, but like we couldn't do that. So how do we bring the bar experience home? So we, developed the Boost Box, which was typically about 3 cocktails, 2 servings each. It was great for a date night at home. So it would be 2 servings of 3 different cocktails. It would come with a zine with like art and a playlist. So you'd like scan a QR code or fire up Spotify. You just like crank the playlist going, and it's something weird and funky and something maybe you haven't heard. Maybe there's like some poems and some art in there. It looks really, really DIY while you're drinking some cool cocktails, and also like snacking on some cool snacks that we would put in there as well, with like stickers and whatnot. We were just trying to, we'll never be able to fully replicate the bar at home, but like how do we do our best to kind of like make that a stopgap? And then for us, it was an opportunity for some much needed revenue during like the darkest times of the pandemic.
Yeah, we would, and this didn't bring any revenue to us, but we would do like weekly playlists just to like interact with our audience. That was just like one thing that we would do, and include some of those in those zines. Those zines were fun to make.
They were fun. They were so much more work than actual money that came from them. It was one of those things that was like, man, that was a labor of love, but it was like, is the people that, when you're like, you realize that you're speaking to them and they come back to you and you're like, this was the coolest thing I've done in a while. And like that level of feedback, I'm like, you hit it out of the park. I'm like, that just feels really, really good. The fact that we can like provide an experience for someone that is like memorable.
It's those interactions that like make it worth it. That would be like why I do it. It's like just seeing the interaction with a guest that like orders something and like laughs at the name and then like has it and they're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. This is so good. And then they get a sandwich or they get a bowl of pasta on Wednesday. Like, and you can see their souls like full. They're like, they're full, their bellies are full. They're like creatively stimulated. Like the look on their face is like, that's the reason like why we do it.
I think it touches on like, it's so hard to touch every sense, right? So it's not just what's in the glass. It's like what you see with your eyes. It's what you listen with your ears. And if all of those, or what you smell, right? All those senses come together. And like you realize that every single part of that sensory experience was thought of, then that really just compounds. And that's what delivers that moment of like satisfaction.
Yeah.
Like, you can have the exact same cocktail sitting in your living room and it's good. It's a good drink, but like it doesn't bring that sensory experience. So when coming into the space, it's kind of hard to replicate it, right? But it's when it's right, it's right.
So you guys are fully immersed into OTR. So I'll give a caveat to this question.
Sure.
Of outside of OTR, what is your favorite neighborhood or favorite part of Cincinnati? I should say greater Cincinnati. So if it's across the river, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love Newport and Covington for sure. So I want to shout them out. I think that my favorite neighborhood is North Side. What I really love about North Side is like there is a lot of street art. There's a lot of like creatives that are like, like at night, like doing graffiti like on the walls, and it seems like there's like a flag and a crosswalk to wave and dance across the crosswalk and put it in the cup on the other side. Those little like things that are like tangible that you can see, the graffiti that's on the walls are like welcomed almost. They like, there's nobody rolling over them, or, the sticker community out there, like sticking stickers everywhere. And like, this like, it's so like imaginative, while being like another historic place with like some cool architecture. And also, Buttercup Valley's right there. So like if you're like a hiking person, or outdoors person, you can go right over, you can walk to a park and get immersed into the woods of Mount Airy Forest. It's like has something for everyone. I love going to the Blue Jay Cafe, just like old diner, no frills. It's beautiful. So yeah, I love Northside.
Nice.
Don't go there as often as I would like to these days, but like that's like probably my favorite neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yep. So echo everything you just said. So to build on that, I would probably say, I mean, Walnut Hills, I like a lot. There's a concerted effort to do there with like what happened in OTR, and there's some really cool shit happening over there. So I wish I was, again, similar. I wish I would go there more often. Again, Northside is outstanding, but I should really, like this summer, my fiance and I, we got into the habit of just like picking a random neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we were like, let's go find into like the deep burbs. And we're just going to pick randomly something, and we'd find a restaurant and make a day out of it. And we'd like visit like random dive bars in like Sharonville, or in, what's the place out by GE, kind of where the Menards is.
In Sharonville?
And it's not, is it Sharonville?
Yeah.
Then maybe that's Sharonville, but like or Evandale.
Evendale.
There you go.
Yeah.
That like, I found like an incredible hot pot restaurant in
Yeah.
Evendale, right next to like a community hockey rink.
That's
like,
awesome.
And like a friend of mine is in like rec league hockey, so we'll finish from hockey, then we go get hot pot, and then we go to the dive bar.
Yeah.
And it's like not at all like anywhere that you see anyone like you. You're like, okay, this is not my typical urban city kid spot, but there's something beautiful about that. There's something about just, I don't know, every neighborhood's got something to say.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's different than what you're in, right? So like, I appreciate that because I live downtown. So like that gives me something different. So really it's less about what's better or worse. It's just what's different than your basis, your baseline.
For food, Clifton, like right by the university, like all the
best spot for like cheap
diversity,
like affordable eats of so many different cuisines. Yeah.
And it's
up by UC.
banging. Like most of them are just banging. Almadina, I want to shout them out.
Almadina, absolutely.
Is amazing.
A Deep India.
A Deep
India is my last
Thai
meal in
Express.
Cincinnati. If for whatever, Thai Express is a gem. But like, I've said this has been true for like 10 years. But I know if you've told me like tomorrow is my last day in Cincinnati, or tomorrow I leave for leave Cincinnati and I can never come back.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I eating for dinner tonight? It's my last meal. Like it's been true for like 10 years. I'm going to go to a Deep India. I'm going to get chicken tikka masala special. I'm going to get the sak choli. I'm going to get the chicken tikka, extra vegetables, no rice. I'm going to get a mango lassi. I know the exact order that I would get, and I would like gorge myself in front of my TV.
Yeah.
On my last night.
I'm into that. That
I'm
sounds
getting
great.
hungry.
Yeah.
I'm always hungry.
What do you think is the biggest like misconception about Cincinnati, and what do you tell people that doubt the city?
Honestly, stay away. It sucks.
I love that.
You're gonna come in and ruin it more. So you know.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I really just, again, like I go back to like the hills of Cincinnati. It's like so beautiful here. And then getting into like Kentucky, it's just like, it's beautiful, mountainous. There's like a lot of imagination here. And it's like mixed with like half of it's like imaginative creatives, and then half of it's like corporate America. Yeah. So it's like really interesting juxtaposition of like humans and what they do day to day. So maybe the biggest misconception might be like that it's like really corporate. There's a lot of suits. There's a lot of boobs, you know, like not like literal, you know, like, you know, figurative. And you know, that's where that's true. Like there is an incredible like artistic community down here that really come out to like support each other when they can. And oftentimes, you know, it's like the creative community doesn't make a lot of money, but they're responsible for all of the interesting things that happen in the city. So I think that would be my answer.
I mean, I don't think if I can actually top that answer, right? That's a good one.
I'll give you a hard question. We've been asking all of our guests if they could narrow it down to one favorite aspect of living in Cincinnati, or just the vibe of Cincinnati. So far, we've gotten the word catalytic, and then talent, and then community.
So we need one word.
So it can be one word of like your description of why you love Cincinnati or what lights you up.
Mine's not one word per se. Mine's
That's
like
okay.
one sentence.
Yeah.
It's almost
Okay,
like,
one sentence. I said that before too.
They're like down to play. Like Cincinnati is actually, there's a lot more openness to try new things here than a lot of like the longtime residents kind of give it credit for. People like the longtime residents are like, I don't want to say stuck in their own ways, but like, this is how it's been done. And these are what we do and this is what we drink. And this is where we go. And that doesn't change. It's been the same for decades. And even within there's a higher amount of transplants in the city than you think that are come here for all the corporate work. And a lot of people that just live here are open to experiment if you just show them where. And so there's Cincinnati's like more down to play than you think it is. But you just have to give them the option. You have to let them know that it's there, and there's got to be a little bit of, it's okay to go there.
Exactly. And once they get there, they love it. They like they just
they thrive.
are obsessed with it.
Or they get exposed to something new, and they're like, I didn't know I was going to love this, and now I love this, and now I'm super into XYZ, whatever subculture you want to pick. Right?
Yeah.
So
I also like consider, to a lot of people, Cincinnati's like home base. If you like geographically like look at it, it's 4 hours away from a lot of stuff. It's 4 hours away from Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, Nashville, Lexington, Louisville. It's like, you name it, like like in a circle, like you can get to Asheville in 6 hours. And it's affordable. I'm putting that in quotes right now to live here. But it's like, it's home base. Like a lot of people that grew up here, they venture out to the coasts to like try out some stuff or like meet some interesting people, but then will always find themselves coming back for a little bit.
Boomerang.
Yeah.
Just like me. Yeah.
Yeah, just exactly. And I think that that's pretty cool. So I like to think of it as like home base for a lot of folks that grew up here. And whereas I didn't really grow up here, I consider it like home base for me. It's 3 hours away from where my family is. And it's like a kind of interesting behavioral thing that I've noticed about, especially people in the creative world, like, going off auditioning at like Saturday Night Live or, like getting to work with the crew there, like, you name it, like trying an acting career out in LA or, whatever, but they'll always come back for a visit. And it's just like a really fun and homey celebration. Like when that happens too.
Yeah, the other thing that I'd add whenever I have friends from the bigger cities come and visit, and like one of the things that is always like a clear takeaway for them is that even in those that live in, pick your hippest, edgiest sub neighborhood of whatever, part of Brooklyn or LA or Silver Lake or Bed-Stuy or whatever it might be, and they come check out, and I'll speak to OTR specifically, right? They'll check out OTR, the West End, Pendleton, kind of like the walkable neighborhood down here. And they're like, this is as good as any one of the cities that we come from. Like, now granted, those cities might have 8 neighborhoods to choose from versus we have one really great one. I mean, there's other great neighborhoods.
We know what you mean.
In the
heart of the city.
In the heart of the city. Right. But we have that one really, really strong core. It's like, I will put our macro OTR against any neighborhood in any major city in America. And I think when they see that here, I'm like, like I've got I own my home here. I've been here for a long time. I've been able to open a business. I have my corporate job. I were able to do all these things, and there's an ability to do more here that doesn't make it easy here, but you wouldn't even be able to do any of what we just said in any of the coastal cities at all. And you're able to, get 80% of that for way, way, way less.
Right.
And not to even call it 80%. That's because that's the thing that's selling it short. But
I think like to wrap up, Brad and I have been asking everyone, how do you see the city at large like evolving in 5 to 10 years? Because from the last 5 to 10 years, obviously it's been a huge development. And what do you see happening, or what do you want to see happen?
I want to see more housing.
Yeah.
We need to see a lot more housing. The reality is like these hockey sticks of growth. And I think Cincinnati's on a trajectory for that, but we need places for people to live.
And affordable.
And affordable, right? So like, and even if what you build is not affordable, and as long as it's not like hyper luxury, well, by building that, then someone else moves into that. And then like that opens up, it just like relieves pressure on the neighborhood, because one of the challenges is that we're not like, OTR is, it's walkable, but like the city isn't, right? And the city doesn't have the transportation that we need. But it's almost like a chicken or the egg. Do you have the population density to then justify the transportation investment? Or do you do the transportation investment that then makes the density possible? So I'd love to, be more the latter than the former, so that way we can actually support the growth, because the way that the city's currently built, like it's hard enough. Like one, we have a lot of businesses in OTR, and we need more people to actually live there. We're kind of still dependent on what we'll call like local tourists. So if the weather's really shitty and then like the burbs aren't coming into OTR that day, we're like, it's kind of slow. Like it's not enough. Like there isn't enough people that live in OTR proper to support the businesses that are there. So I'd love to have greater density downtown, more high rises, that, one that brings affordability down. And it also has more people, which means more businesses can like flourish, which means that more new ideas come. And I think that's the trajectory of the city, but we need to make sure that we don't get in the way of, the housing development in order to facilitate that.
That's a whole conversation in itself, for sure. And if like, I would like to see more business owners like try to interact with their neighbors that maybe have lived there before 2010. Maybe they've been living there since 1980s. And it's always been their neighborhood, but they were never invited to partake in this like beautification. I would like to see more business owners try to like interact, offer these people some jobs. And that's like how I've like, ever since I've come to understand what gentrification means, you can really see the patterns and how just unfair sometimes, how unfair it is to the people that have been there for much longer, and the people that were so afraid to come to these neighborhoods are not anymore. But we're not interacting enough. We're not talking to each other enough. We're not trying hard enough to get to know one another and try to help each other. Because like the community word, I feel like is, especially like with business and bar owners, I feel like that's thrown around a lot. And it's like a word that means a lot to me, to like us and our ethos. It's like we do try to interact with our neighbors and like provide them a space to come and charge your phone, get some water. And also if you want like a watering hole to like hang out in, then, we have inexpensive options to like hang out. Cause that's like, we want to make sure that our well drinks, the spirits on our well are $5. A lot of other places are charging a lot more than that. And, it's like, I don't make those decisions, but it's fine. But like, we wanted to like have availability, on our menu so that anyone could come in there and sit down and feel like they weren't breaking the bank to do so. So I would like to see it evolve like that. I don't know if it will or not, but we can only control what happens within our four walls. And we're going to continue to like promote that, and try to like speak with that, like speak with that sort of like voice behind it. Affordable housing is for sure something that needs to happen. If people can't live down there, there's no point.
Where do you think your like bartenders and servers, they need to live too, right? They need to be close to work, if not like,
because the hours are insane.
But I think to maybe the point of on the positive side to your question, where is Cincinnati going? I think it's the growth continues and accelerates. It's just that comes with his own set of baggage.
Yeah.
Right? So that's sorry to take that in the negative direction.
No,
absolutely not. We want the real, but
it's good. It's I think that the city is in a healthy direction, that it is, gaining more and more notoriety. And if you look at, I have a friend of mine that has lived in Austin for like 30 years. And I remember actually, going back to like 2010, 2011, before I decided to take the job here, I remember like talking to him, and he was like, that was right when Austin was first starting to being nationally known as like a destination place to go live, and it's a cool town. And he's like, yeah, we're finally getting national notoriety. But it's like, this place has been this has been building for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. And at some point it hits like a national zeitgeist. And then all of a sudden, like the hockey stick really, really comes into effect. And all of a sudden housing or the amount of people moving in is quadrupled in a matter of 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's, nationally seems like, oh, Austin came out of nowhere. But if you talk to someone that's been there, it's like, this has been happening. This has been slowly percolating for 25 years.
Yeah.
So Cincinnati's on that journey. I think we haven't fully like exploded, but like things happen slower than you think, and then they happen all at once.
Yep.
Right.
And
exactly.
We're right before the all at once, but we're like, you can kind of see that the choo-choo train's gaining momentum. Right?
Yeah.
Still going up the hill.
Yeah, it's still going up. We haven't quite crested it yet, but you can see it. You see the hill, and which is, for us, great for business. I think it's great for the city. But to the earlier point, housing.
The thing is like the more dense the population, then you can share in the taxes. Right now, the population is so low in the city. I live in the city too. And it's just like the closer you are, I mean, the property taxes, as a lender, I looked it up. I think we're like 10th in the entire country. Is the highest. It's like 2.3%.
So my parents live in LA. So that's where I go home for the holidays. And not even from a percentage perspective. Like when I would always complain to my parents about like, oh yeah, our property taxes. And they'd be like, sure. 2% of 2 point whatever percent of X. Like then finally I was like, showed them like I paid more in absolute dollars in property tax than my parents did in Los Angeles.
Yep. No, it is true. When I moved from California, they're at 1.75. My house was half as much and my taxes were more here.
Yeah.
And the livability, like everyone, even that's from here, they're like, oh, it's so cheap. It's so cheap. It's like in certain aspects, but we really need to rally together to continue, because if we can't sustain businesses like yours with population, then we're never going to succeed. And it's all about bringing people in instead of having the suburbs just, visit.
Well, a big thing is, you brought up a pet peeve of mine is that density has to be legalized, because right now you can't build high rises in the vast majority of the city. And honestly, it's not even high rises. You can't build a 2 to 4 unit building for multiple families to live on one plot of land. And that's crucial for, having a population that can go to the cool restaurants and bars and businesses. Yeah. But it's also crucial to have people who are along, transit lines, so that becomes viable as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's another thing that I would like to see the city evolve, in a way that public transportation is easily accessible, and not an inconvenience. Not like I have to wake up at 6 a.m. so I can catch the bus to catch this bus to get to work. Yeah.
And if you miss that one bus, then you might
you're fucked.
I don't know, and sure, I would love rail everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But if I taking understand that cost is really high, and then now
especially on a hill,
but the fact that we neutered the streetcar to not go up to the hospitals is still a sore spot for me. But how do we actually incentivize and make a public transit a better opportunity? So why don't we start with simple parking rides from the burbs to downtown and dedicated lanes, so it's actually a clear, that bus is going faster than if you drove. Yeah. Right. How do we modify things at the existing infrastructure so we get a little scrappy to kind of solve the problem? Because if you get to the point of we need transportation infrastructure, and And if it's subterranean, subway, or bust,
Right.
I'm like, I'll tell you that right now, we'll never do it.
Not
Right,
gonna
yeah.
happen. We started to do it once.
It didn't
Or even
work out.
elevated or whatever,
Yeah.
but even, or building the streetcar up, I still think we should probably try and find a way to do that
Yeah.
up to the hospitals.
Yeah.
But like, even if not the streetcar, like other alternative transportations,
Indy's building a great rapid transit bus line right now, which is infancy. And that's a big jump for them. They've got their own transit issues there. That's where I previously lived. But I always call out Seattle. I mean, Seattle doesn't have a bunch of trains going everywhere. They have trains, but it's predominantly buses. And so you don't have to put rails in the ground to have transit.
I think that's a great idea. That's the only solution because of, like I said, the chicken before the egg or that. It's like, we need money to build that. So the bus system makes more sense, but just way more reliable. Well, to wrap things up, I'm hungry with all this food talk from earlier.
Sure.
And now I'm looking at your awesome sticker for spaghetti night. So it's every Wednesdays?
Yeah, every Wednesday we started doing a Wednesday like wine night that we call Juice and Funk.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, where we the majority of our wine list is selected from farmers that make it. So it's like really, really small production and really good stuff. They're like biodynamic, organic farmers. They really care about what goes into their bottle. And we're lucky to have people that select this wine, bring it to us, and we can learn about the maker. And then on Wednesdays, we open up a lot of that stuff and pour it by the glass, 3-ounce pour or 5-ounce pour, make it available. The pricing structure might raise some eyebrows for the people that know what they're drinking. They're like, this is expensive stuff, but like we want to make it available.
Yeah.
And availability is like, again, this is the example that we want to try to set because we're not trying to be exclusive with our selections. We're not trying to like price anyone out. We want you to be able to have a 3-ounce pour of like really cool Sangiovese from Italy that, you know, with your spaghetti and like leave.
Normally sold by the bottle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And it's also a way to like train our staff, our lovely, amazing staff. You know, they can get the opportunity to taste a lot of stuff that is not normally available to them to taste as well. It's just kind of like a bottle that they can see. And that's where like the training comes in. So like over time, their knowledge has increased so much more, and their excitement for the wine and sharing it with other people. And that's like at the ground level how you build community in my view.
I love that. We're going to put that in our calendars. I'm having spaghetti next Wednesday.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
And
Speaking of
we usually always have
staff,
like a vinyl DJ too.
That's cool.
Fun.
Yeah, so like a DJ from 9 to midnight. We're trying to like do everything in the entertainment world to like make you leave feeling full.
Music, wine, and noodles. Can't
Yeah.
get better than
Speaking
that.
of staff, if I'm listening to this and I'm hearing you guys speak, I'm like getting my application ready. Like, or I'm like walking in, I'm like, I want to work there. You know, the service industry, people in the service industry deserve a ton of respect, and they don't always get it. But it's cool that you guys are doing it the right way and taking care of your people and your actual community. So it's cool.
Yeah.
If you haven't been, you have to go. Lost and Found. We thank you guys so much for coming out.
You.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for having us.
Yeah,
Really
it was
appreciate
such a pleasure learning about how you started your business, how you've like survived the pandemic and grown and flourished, and how you have such a sense of community and care about like all walks of life and leaving it open, you know, and so inviting. I'm excited. Now I need to be more of a regular because I'm like, I need a whiskey sour right now.
Fair enough.
But thank you again. And it's been great. So
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank y'all.
appreciate it.
Yeah.